lot of us do a mistake of thinking that they are aware of the legalities. While they are aware of the legalities, but they are not aware of the intricacies of how your business functions,
Right.
and what's the exact issue that you are challenging
Correct.
in the court, apart from the law aspect.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast. My name is Jenna Krishnan. I'm your host, the founder of the Daily Lawyer, and I am on a mission to make law and the legal profession simple and accessible to everyone. One of the ways we do it is through this podcast, where we have conversations with legal professionals and sometimes business owners. And as they share their learnings, their mistakes, tips and tricks, they offer us a chance to make more informed decisions about our business and life. And today is a start of a new series, and I'm very excited for it. We are kicking off a new series in collaboration with the Indian Lawyers Association. So the Indian Lawyers Association is a voluntary organization of legal professionals across India. There are about 75 chapters across the country, and the purpose of the Indian Lawyers Association is, or the vision is really to have a clean Indian judiciary. The mission is to shape the future of the legal field, and they want to do this by promising high quality legal education, ethical conduct, and professionalism. And we are going to be featuring various lawyers and legal professionals from within the ILA network. The conversations today are less going to be about the journeys of each of these stunning professionals in their own legal journeys, and we are going to focus more on solution-oriented conversations as to what are the problems that are confronting the Indian judiciary today, and how each of us in our capacity and in our positions within the Indian judicial framework, how can we help and how can we contribute meaningfully to improving this situation. With that said, our first guest for kicking off this series is Mr. Rajiv Mohapatra, who is currently the Vice President Legal and Compliance of MoneySend, which is a Mastercard company. And Rajiv is a dual qualified banking and finance lawyer with a master's in finance control and law, with over 23 years of experience in managing legal and regulatory risks across various geographies. Clearly, I'm reading off his very illuminating bio, and like it's full of achievements. So you have to bear with me as I keep reading off his bio. As the Vice President Legal and Compliance for MoneySend, Rajiv leads and manages the entire legal compliance and risk function globally, and it covers areas such as Asia Pacific, Middle East and East Africa, Europe, North America and Latin America, I think the entire world in this sense. He has also worked earlier with Home Credit Group, Vodafone, HSBC and Citibank, and he's led the legal teams in all of these functions, even as a general counsel and head of compliance. Earlier, he also was in private practice in the high courts and Supreme Courts, so he also has a dispute resolution background. His specialization is in managing legal, regulatory and compliance risks, public policy, litigation, legal audit, compliance strategy, contracts, etc. He's advised the board in internal and industry legal and regulatory committee members like CII and PCI, etc., and navigating various legal and regulatory compliance, risk, legislations, and policies. He's won a number of awards, which is the top 100 general counsels in India by Business World Legal, 100 shining stars of the Indian legal fraternity. He's been recognized as a thought leader in the banking and finance legal fraternity by Lex Witness. He's been a speaker, and he's moderated various sessions with national and global conferences. And now I really have to pause because, oh my God, what is this bio? So many achievements. I'm almost gasping. Welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast. It is absolutely my pleasure to have you here. Thank you for giving me.
Thank you, Jenna. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. So now we're going to start with your most current role and the role that you've held for a long time now, which is your general counsel role. And I'm probably going to start with a little basic question, which is, for those probably who don't know, what would you say is the role of a general counsel? Let's start with that, and then I'll go on to the first question that I have for you for today.
Sure. So, general counsel, I think probably is in current world a most abused word, I would say, in-house. Because our generalist is also called as general counsel.
Yeah.
And our chief legal officer is also called as general counsel. So unlike in US, where you have a differentiated role, chief legal officer, and you have a separate general counsel. Well, in India, at least, let me talk about Indian parlance. General counsel is largely considered to be the advisor to the board and the management. So he should be part of the executive team, while it is not that in every company. But at least in the companies that I have worked for, the general counsel has been, part of the executive team and part of the internal risk committees, advising board on various legal and regulatory issues. Now, what does the general counsel usually the role envisage? The role envisages that he is the chief advisor to protect the company and the organization against any legal risks, countering the legal liabilities, strategizing to take the company ahead, giving his support to the business, ring fencing all the legal and regulatory risks. Apart from that, he is a gatekeeper for any legal risks that the company might face, any legal challenges that the company might face. It could be litigations, it could be employee-related issues, it could be factory-related issues. So there are various things depending on the organization or the industry in which the general counsel is. So and that is not all where it ends, because the general counsel could also be the external facing face of the company for policy advocacy, for regulatory advocacies, where you interact with the industries, interact with various industry forums, like I am part of the CII Legal and Regulatory Committee. You interact with the industry body and do a lot of advocacy with the government. You work closely with the governments and the policymakers to kind of drive those industry facing issues, which probably in your day-to-day work you work in silo or within your organization and are not aware of the larger issues what other companies are facing. So as a face of the company, you interact with a lot of other peers, industry, and go and do a representation to the government.
So I think you've given me such a good answer of what a GC is. Probably because of your really vast experience across various roles and various geographies, handling this role. And I would say this is the best answer I've got on the podcast to what a general counsel is, because most people think we are like postmen. I don't know whether you've had this, especially if you go to the court, they're like, talk to your management. They think we are paper pushers. Ki external counsel say we give it to management say we give it to them, and we are just in between like postmen. So you've given such a wonderful understanding of the multifaceted role that a GC plays. And obviously the larger the company, the more the impact and the bigger the role of a GC. And now, having been a GC across various companies, you have, I'm sure, interacted with a lot of lawyers. You also have a dispute resolution background, so you also have interacted, I'm sure, with lawyers in the in an adversarial courtroom system. What would you say are some of the issues you faced with interacting with lawyers, maybe litigation, within or without the courts, and how have you solved for it internally?
Well, what in a dispute, at least in India, considering the how the Indian judiciary works, and we all are pretty aware of the pendency of cases across India in various courts. It's not only the GCs or the in-house counsels who face that challenge. Even the lawyers face that challenge. Even the counsels that you engage, they also are, their hands are also tied at some point in time. But then, as a in-house counsel, as a general counsel, the issues, the challenges that I see or I have faced can be broadly categorized into categories where I think any GC would have faced that problem. And when I talk about the three major things that I could see is probably lack of specialization in specific laws. When you approach a lawyer, you have to, as a in-house counsel, you have to educate the external counsel about your business.
Yes.
A lot of us do a mistake of thinking that they are aware of the legalities. While they are aware of the legalities, but they are not aware of the intricacies of how your business functions,
right.
and what's the exact issue that you are challenging in the court, apart from the law aspect.
Correct. Absolutely.
So whether you are an in-house counsel, whether you are an external counsel, practicing lawyers, you always have to understand that apart from the legal issue, what are those intricacies, how to break that down in simple terms so that a layman can understand. If you're able to do that, and if you're able, as an in-house counsel, if you're able to make your external counsels understand that, then it is much easier for them to argue on behalf of you, putting forth the point of law.
Correct. True.
So while that's one of the thing that I have faced, is because specialization, when you are taking up highly technical issues and challenging that in the court, typically in smaller cities, you would not find lawyers with all the expertise.
Yes, 100%.
So it's incumbent upon the general counsel to kind of, to a certain extent, break down the intricacies of the issues, the technicalities, the way your organization functions, make it clear to these lawyers. So that's one of the aspects. In big cities, that's not a challenge, because you can go to a law firm who have a lot of experts in-house within the law firm, and they deal with so many issues or similar issues and so many large organizations as their clients. So it's easy for them to kind of grasp the issues that you may present, which is not the case in the small cities.
Yeah, but just to underscore this point, because I think this point that you made about the big cities and the small cities, and if you're looking at it, I mean, if there are other in-house counsels or those lawyers who are interested in becoming in-house who are listening to this conversation, then I think this is a point that needs a little bit one more underscoring, that we sometimes don't, like you rightly said, we assume that the external knows exactly what we are talking about. So we as in-house counsels, we are at the junction of business and law. So it is our duty also to explain to them, like you said, what is the business side of it and how it will impact the business. And this is something that lawyers don't think of. We're not trained to think of it. And as external lawyers, we don't even realize that there is an impact on the top line or the bottom line, or and there is a board that we had responsible to, and they will be asking us questions. So there are so many other things that are under the surface of the black letter law. So this is very important. Secondly, why I wanted to bring out this point about small cities and bigger cities is, in many smaller courts, the same lawyer will practice on the criminal side and the civil side, which does not happen at all in Bombay, for example. You have a completely different, in fact, you have an appellate side bar which is separate, original side bar which is separate, and there is really no crossing over that way. So the system is naturally built for more amount of specialization, and this is something, as GCs or in-house counsels, we definitely have matters all over the country. Sometimes we'll have it in tier 3 cities and we don't know how to even, sometimes we have language barriers as well, if it is in the south or if it is in the northeast or whatever. So I think this is a very, very valid point. I just wanted to underscore it, but please continue.
Yeah, thank you. And in fact, the other point that you just touched upon is that mismatch in understanding the organizational priorities and the priorities that the external counsel would have in his domain. So if you as a general counsel, if you explain your organizational priorities, how you function, what is the expectation of your organization, the board, the management, and how do you want to prioritize your matter? Because there could be challenges because of overload of matters in the court, right? So how urgency you have to underscore the urgency in
Right.
your matter, and how soon you want to get a relief, and in what instance you want to get a relief, at what point of whether it is an interim relief, whether it is a permanent relief, whether it is an injunction. So you have to be pretty clear about what you want in a short term, what's the medium term strategy, and what you want to achieve in the long term. If you and your external lawyers are aligned with that, then I think it's pretty easy to navigate.
Yes.
So as a general counsel, as you strategize within your organization and navigate and advise your board on how to handle the litigations or handle any issues that have cropped up, similarly, you have to align and strategize with your external counsel as well, which is important.
Yes. Very, very useful tips, huh? I mean, if anyone's listening, these are fabulous tips for us to employ in our practice as in our roles as in-house lawyers. Now, you spoke a little bit about judicial delay, and I want to pick up from that. It is a plague that each of us, all of us in our country, whether we are in the profession or not, are very familiar with. Now, what do you think? What can we do, each of us? First of all, what can we do collectively to help plug that, reduce the judicial delay? And secondly, what can each of us do in our individual capacities today going forward that can contribute positively to that?
So, couple of things that we can do collectively, and within that, few things that we can do as an individual as well. So, things like simplifying the legal procedures, things like adopting the technologies, things like modernizing the codes, so that things start moving faster, it is easier for them. And I think COVID times were a great learner for everyone, because the entire country's courts moved online.
Correct. Yes.
So the courts were equipped, the judges were equipped to take matters, the filings were online, everything went online. So I think things like that, and we shouldn't lose that momentum and take that forward. And thanks to the Chief Justice of India, who is a great propagator of
technology,
acknowledging and pushing forward modernization,
innovation.
Yes. So leveraging technology for efficiencies, you have and what I think we have taken a step towards right direction is ADRs. Using ADRs to reduce the number of litigations, mandating mediations, mandating other forms of dispute resolutions, alternate dispute resolutions, is a key to kind of reduce the
overall
delayed justice, overall pendency, because we all are familiar, justice delayed is justice denied. So there are cases for flimsy reasons, for flimsy issues, where the matters have gone for 50 years. The petitioners would have died, the people who have provided evidence at that point in time or where witness have died. So, and the matters is continuing in the court. That's absolutely which can be resolved. And in fact, there were a recent issue highlighted in the newspapers recently, was that in a particular state of India, in a lower court, in fact, it was a criminal matter and it was in a trial court, for 59 rupees.
Oh God.
Of embezzlement, and ultimately the person was acquitted, not convicted, after 49 years.
Oh God.
The complainant had died. There were 13 witnesses, 12 have died. There was just one witness alive. So, and finally, what's the meaning of that acquittal?
Yeah.
So for matters like that, you should kind of push it towards ADR, because it's not worth it. The amount of the amount you spend on
Legal
maintaining that.
fees. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
unreal. Even the court fee would have been more than that 59
Yes,
rupees. It's
yes.
ridiculous.
So and so reducing such frivolous litigations
Yeah.
and pushing it towards lok adalats, pushing it towards mediations would easily reduce the burden. And yeah, so people might argue that how would you move a criminal matter to a lok adalat or a mediation?
Yeah. Alternate.
But there is no harm in trying. Even within criminal matters, you can segregate those matters into various buckets and start with the low crime matters
Or 138 matters, like the civil matters which are given the color of a
yes,
criminal
yes.
matter. But I have a question here, and this is coming a little bit from practical experience, and I don't know whether you've had a similar experience. But what happens in contentions, any kind of litigation or contentious matters, is the ego on both sides. And now I have been in mediation, especially when they mandated mediation. And you have to that it became almost like a check mark. Mediation karna hai. Now I am also guilty of sitting over there and saying no, we won't accept, we will not, so I also, because my instructions from my management was that this is it is X or nothing, and we will fight. So I was also not and obviously neither was the other side. So the mediation was an absolute and utter failure. Now, when I spoke to some of my friends and colleagues who are partners at bigger law firms, they were trying to tell me about how, we had to be a little more intelligent in the way we chose our mediator. We probably didn't choose the right mediator for our matter, who would have been able to facilitate resolution. Okay, never mind.
Right.
Those are learnings that we had. But what I'm trying to get at is, while all this is good on paper, do you really think that it's getting implemented correctly in practice? Because now the ego that comes, or that we will not resolve, we want, my way or highway, that kind of attitudes. Do you think that also is something that could change, that needs to change? Only then, because Indians, I think we are a very contentious society that way. We love filing litigations.
Yeah. So, well, it was a great step to mandate mediation, and I think I would tend to agree with your law firm friends that choosing a mediator is the key here. I am a trained mediator, so, and even before the mediation was mandated, I had tried that in resolving a lot of litigations when I was in my previous roles. So, and it's just the intent and how you, as a general counsel, how you go and convince your organization that how it benefits the organization and saves a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, any organization is looking at the budget and the cost. If you are able to convince them that you are saving costs, you are helping them move ahead without spending money on this litigation, then I think none of the organization would be not willing to continue with the mediation. That's one. You're right. On both the sides, it's because of the ego you don't settle the matter in mediation, or probably you are not very enthusiastic about mediation. But again, choosing the right mediator, talking about the right points which can lead you to resolution is the key here.
And can we go on a little bit of a tangent? And if I have to ask you, then how do you choose the right mediator? Because in my head, when I was talking to my friends, I was like, then it's like just choosing an arbitrator, right? Like the correct, in the sense that when we are choosing an arbitrator for a matter, we are looking at his or her practice area, how much, if they have counsels, how many matters they have done, how do they understand the technicalities, their availability, blah, blah, blah. So do you employ similar kind of pointers to choose a mediator?
Yes, you must, in fact. And in fact, nowadays it's much easier to choose a mediator because you have organizations where there are registry of mediators who have mediated a lot of matters. So you can look at those mediators, their profile, and then decide. For example, I'll if I take an example here of you doing a mediation, you have practiced in the courts, you have handled dispute litigation, not only locally but globally. So if I have to take a matter in which I find that you might be a right fit and you have the expertise, and I see your profile and you have done that, because mediations are generally confidential issues, right? You would not find about which matters you have mediated. But if I look at your profile and see that you are a registered mediator and have done, say, hundreds of mediations and have a good success rate, then probably it will be better to choose you rather than anyone else that I would know.
Okay, so then the advice that I'm hearing you say is that look at each matter independently. Just because one mediator worked for you at a particular matter need not mean that he or she may work for you for another matter. So
Right.
assess everything independently and assess every mediator independently, and then use the parameters that we discussed a little earlier, apply it and see whether it applies to this case. And I think that's a great tip. I wish I had met you 4 years ago, but I did. So that was a fail. But anyway, we spoke a little bit. We spoke about COVID. You spoke about COVID and technology, and it has been very helpful to have technology now in courts. But how have you leveraged technology in your practice?
So I have mostly worked in large MNCs where we have been kind of early adopters of technology in managing our, whether it is legal compliance, statutory filings. So, and I have kind of worked on establishing and building technology for those companies as well. So I have used technology for litigation management, for contract management. I'll say all the cliche work or the technologies that anyone uses today, the usual. So compliance, the GRC tools, the statutory filing tools. So, and in fact, now we are using AI and other similar tools for contract drafting, because
Is it?
And to put it in a basically to standardize your contract. That's a fantastic tool.
I have so many questions on that, but I'm holding myself back because I don't want to lose the focus of our discussion from what. But maybe I'll probably connect with you offline because I find this world fascinating. But now, when you spoke about AI, what do you think is the future of legal tech in India? If for, let's say, young students or young lawyers are listening, and a lot of people write to me now after starting the Daily Lawyer about getting into legal tech and support for law firms and non-active practice. So what do you think is the future of legal tech, and how do you think we can build for it, and how do you think it will maybe positively impact our system, what we are focusing on through the ILA mission?
So let me give you a recently I read somewhere. Let me just give you a few data points here. I think in 2020, the LPO the industry of India, which is a legal process outsourcing work, was 8 billion. And it's expected to grow at a 22% CAGR every year till 2027. Now, why I'm talking about LPO is because that's one of the, within the legal industry, that's one of the area where you use technology the most, whether it is for e-discovery, whether it is for your all kind of tools, whether it is contract, compliance, filings. So you have all those tools there. So and globally, if I talk about those numbers, globally, from 2022 till 2027, that LPO industry would be growing at a 31.4% CAGR.
Wow.
Now, that is at least 10% more than what you would see in India.
Yeah.
And why is that? It's not only because India had been a pioneer in LPO because of a lot of lawyers, English-speaking lawyers in the country, and large population of lawyers. But slowly and gradually, globally, the other countries are also picking up.
Yeah.
Whether it is Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Mexico, you see a lot of people picking up those LPOs. Now, how do you, for any person who is passing out from a law college or a young lawyer, this field, whether it is legal tech or reg tech that we talk about, so you have immense scope now. And why is that? Because at least you have, in today's time, you have some 650 plus startups working in this area.
Wow.
In legal technologies in India.
I don't.
So there is immense scope to solve a lot of problems in these areas. There might be compliance tools, there might be policy tools, there might be tools where you can research or write contracts, but each of them is providing something new to you. So, and there is always, legal field is such fast and
so
evolving.
dynamic.
So there is always something more to do there. And anybody who chooses this career, I'm sure it's one of the lucrative as probably a litigation career.
And active practice. And how do you think it will positively impact? I mean, how does the answer may be a bit obvious also, but how do you think legal tech, this kind of support, positively impact our system as a whole in our country from the mission of ILA, that lens?
Yes. So you have to understand what's the mission of ILA. ILA was formed to connect the practicing lawyers, sharing of knowledge, building that consensus to address the issues that we have today in India, whether it is in courts, whether it is in the judiciary, whether it is the entire judicial system or the pendency of cases. So using tech, and as I mentioned in my previous response about judicial delays, using tech can actually help you in reducing the pendency. And if I have applied some kind of technology to kind of navigate and reduce or address the issue of reducing cases here in Bombay, then through ILA, I can talk about
amplify that.
Those steps that I have taken here, which has worked, and amplify that across India.
Yeah. Makes sense. Now, again, I am loving how I'm able to just ask you questions based off your older answers. Like you're like a very lovely interviewee. But we spoke about the LPO industry, Indians sort of working for internationally, right? So what do you see as the scope for Indian lawyers to work internationally?
I would say the scope is limited if you go and practice. But if you are in-house, then there are plenty of scope. And this I can say from my experience, because I have worked as a regional lawyer managing AP before this global role, and there are not only enough scope in just pure legal, but there are a lot of other ancillary things. You have regulatory compliance, you have regulatory advocacy, you have litigation, you have and by litigation I mean you are an in-house litigation expert advising external counsel, because you cannot go and obviously practice in the courts outside. So there are enough and more scope if you are an in-house counsel. But if you are a practicing lawyer, that scope is limited because probably there are few jurisdictions where, like Singapore, where if you registered with their Singapore Arbitration Council, and you can be part of the ADR lawyers to practice ADR there. But otherwise, for private practitioners, the scope is limited.
But what about like this LPO thing, right? When we spoke about where we are somebody sitting in their house and supporting, pre-trial work of another country, something like that.
Yes. So if you are interested in kind of looking at not only Indian law aspects, but what's happening globally, what are the challenges, how to address those issues, then I think LPO is a great place to start with, because mostly LPO is its legal process outsourcing, where the outsourced work comes to India, and that outsource could be from across the world. So you get an insight into various laws and regulations and the processes of other countries, which you would otherwise not get unless and until you become a global lawyer within an organization.
True. And now, if I have to ask you the other way around, because now we're having international law firms practicing in India with the little narrow doorway that they have got to practice in India. What do you see about that? How do you see that helping Indian clients? And on the other side, how do you see that helping lawyers and the general system as a whole? Or not helping also? I mean, depending on what your answer is.
Right. So let me talk about because it doesn't help the entire country as such. It would help the MNCs who are either who are present globally, and they have to appoint lawyers everywhere. So what they do is, wherever they are globally headquartered, they appoint a lawyer from that particular country or jurisdiction, and that law firm then can reach out to their partner law firms across other countries. One is that it brings in the benefits, I would say, is expertise and global exposure that they bring in, because they not only advise you or your company in a particular jurisdiction, but their remit is across the globe. Of course, the quality of legal service, because since they deal with large MNCs, the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies, so the quality of legal services or the professionalism that they would bring in is again of global standard.
Yes.
And one of the key things that they bring in, and which in fact the few law firms from India who are going abroad and opening offices are also practicing now, is legal innovation. So the idea of being open to use various tools, use various new and innovative mechanism to resolve the issues or address the issues. So innovate within the current domain or the current tools that you have.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very unique skill set that larger, more globalized international law firms bring, rather than the more boutique ones that you have.
And legal innovation, in fact, would not be only in form of technology. Legal innovation could also be in structuring a deal.
Yes, absolutely.
Closing a deal.
Yes.
In your negotiation. So
many things, because they are able to have a view which is much larger than what maybe more boutique, localized, geographical law firms have.
Yes.
So that's a really, I think, good point. Now, I think the last two questions only I had. I wanted to ask you about what a general counsel does, but I asked you that first. And now, finally, if you want to give some advice to young lawyers, what would you say?
Uh, I think there are a couple of things that I would like to tell them. Is that always be open to ideas and always be open to new things, because there is enough and more scope. And since we talked about legal innovation, so there are enough and more scope to innovate within area that you are working in, whether it is litigation, whether it is
On the
ADRs,
Yeah,
whether it is
of course.
in-house.
Yes.
So wherever you are, there is enough and more scope to do that. Second is always focus on networking and find a mentor, because that is key. If you are a private practitioner, networks helps you in getting matters to you.
Yes.
So it helps you in increasing your visibility.
Yes.
And why find a mentor? Because you have to have mentor as a sounding board on what you are doing, whether it is right or wrong, and how to move forward, how to grow in your chosen path. So those are the key things.
Nice, very nice. I think there is a question in the next section. So now we're done with the main section of the podcast, and then we go into the last section, which I do because I love listening to the answers. So this is the last section is a little smaller answer, shorter, quicker answers. So it's 5, 4, 3. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 because I ask you 5 of something, 4 of something, 3 of something, like that. But I love it. I do it for myself. So that the first of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is 5 productivity tips that you have.
Yes. So always be solution oriented. Be pragmatic, being optimist. I would say client focused, which is key. As a lawyer, whether you are in-house or
Yes.
Private practitioner, keeping your clients' priorities and his interests as a prime is important. And avid reader.
Yes.
Read anything, because for being a successful lawyer, you need to have a command over your language, and it could be not only English, because if you are in a trial court which is in vernacular, then you have to also articulate your draft or your arguments in that language. So you have to be a avid reader, not only of law books, but various things that you can get your hands on.
No, I'm loving how you're just like handing over the segues into the next question to me with all your answers. So I'm so grateful to you. But one thing I wanted to just narrate or share one story when you said about reading. So I was talking to Mr. Jonathan Solomon, who is Aaron's father. He's one of the senior most solicitors, at least in Bombay. And he was on the podcast and he shared this experience where he said, I used to take the local train, and since you're in Bombay, you take the local train to Fort, and on the way he would read one judgment a day. Okay, so he was having some matter which was a land related matter in Alibag. There was some sort of litigation where the government had said that they want that land to build a new international airport. They wanted that land. And all of the farmers and the localites were protesting because there were many geological problems aside from the farming and agricultural problems. So he was narrating how in the train. So that was happening parallelly, but one day he was going and he was reading a judgment on the Official Languages Act, which said that every government notification should be published in the local language. And in that particular litigation, they were trying to, the government had posted for inviting objections, but the time limit was a very short time, and they had to get some 35,000-40,000 villagers to come together, which was taking time. So then he found that, oh my God, wait, this is not in the official language of the state. It was not in the regional language. So they were able to approach the High Court and get it in the regional language. And that gave them enough time to actually get get all the objections that they needed from these villagers. But what was so striking is that something is seemingly completely unconnected. You are reading every day because it's been a habit of yours to read every day. You're reading a judgment from the Official Languages Act, which has nothing to do with this, which is under the Land Revenue Code. But still, you were able to use that and get the result that you wanted. So that is just speaking to your point.
So I think that's it. Those are the 5 points that I would kind of.
I cannot disagree with any, or I have nothing to say about anything. It's all like absolutely necessary. Now, again, the beautiful segue that you gave me into the next question with your last answer is 4 books that you would recommend. It need not be law books, as you rightly said. 4 books.
I'm not going to recommend law books.
I'm so happy. I get so bored when people say law books.
No, because lawyers tend to talk about law books, and as I mentioned in my the answer to the earlier question, you have to be a avid reader reading everything, and it not only relates to law books, judgments, or books written by lawyers, but it has to be fiction, non-fiction, history, autobiographies. You have to read everything. Newspapers, magazines, whatever you can get your hands on. So my 4 books that I would recommend is one is Factfulness by Hans Rosling, a Swedish researcher. It talks about, in fact, it's pretty decent book and which applies to today's time, because it's very relevant, because you have a lot of narratives floating around because of the social media, because of the 24/7 news channels. So you have to. So Factfulness talks about how do you identify the facts from the fiction?
Wow.
How do you identify the truth
from the propaganda?
From the propaganda.
Oh, lovely.
So that's one book. Second is, I would say that there is if anyone can get their hands on, then there is this Republic by Plato. There are a lot of versions of it, but it's a book which touches upon various topics, which is in a way of a debate and have various arguments, and which is pretty relevant even in today's times. Another book, 21 Lessons by for the 21st century by Yuval Noah Harari. That's a book which is a must read, because you would identify where the world is heading, what could be the trends 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and he has talked about AI, how the AI could develop, and which you are seeing now. And so all of that. Amongst all of this, a very recent book that I read, which kind of makes sense, it's called Seventh Sense.
Achha.
So Seventh Sense is by Joshua Cooper Ramo, a writer who talks about that you always have sixth sense, but why seventh sense is essential, because seventh sense is something, it touches upon all other key senses to identify again something where you can see the trend or the narrative where it is leading to. And so it's a mix of IQ, EQ to kind of find your
intuition, all this.
Yes.
Oh, nice. All the 4 book recommendations sound fabulous. This is the only one that I have read out of the 4, which is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. But otherwise, the other 3 I haven't. I'm really waiting to dive in.
If I may add one autobiography there, is Before Memory Fades. I just love that. By Fali Narimans.
Yeah. Incidentally, Jonathan Sir said the same thing. That was one of the books that Yeah, I know, even I like that book. Okay, lovely. I think speak endlessly on books because I feel like I get all my wisdom from books. And if I have wisdom, any wisdom. Now, the next question I think you've actually already answered, so it may be a repetition for you, but it is three lessons or three things you want to tell young students or young lawyers today.
Okay. So, for students, I would say persevere, uh, keep learning, reading, because you have chosen a profession. You have to be a lifelong student in that profession, because the more you read, the better your craft is. So do not shy away from research or learning. Uh, Second thing I would say is always be open to opportunities to network, because I talked about networking and mentoring, and that's one of the key aspects, even for students,
Yes.
because networking will uh, give you insights into the other facets within your industry which you might not be aware of. Networking will, if you are a practicing lawyer, always helps you in
Yes.
bringing you more cases. And as a student, if you network, that helps you in your learning and your development,
Yes.
and increasing your visibility also.
Yes.
So that's the second one. Third one for students, which is a key one, is that I have seen, and I interact with a lot of students, is that one, when they enter the law school after first year, they are little indecisive about where to do, whether to do an internship in a private firm, whether to do
Yes.
under a senior counsel in a trial court, high court, supreme court,
Mm.
in-house. My suggestion to them is be open to everything.
Correct.
Do not have a pre-decided
Yes.
mind that I only want to get into a law firm and build my career there, therefore I will only do internships in law firms. No. Do your internships, choose wisely, do it in, because you get ample of opportunities to do internships. So even if it is for a month, do it in all these areas. Do it in-house, do it under trial court lawyers, do it in high courts, in supreme courts, in law firms, and then choose where you want to focus.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree and echo this. In fact, I think I'm going to take this snippet and put it all over social, because nowadays I'm not sure whether it happens to everybody, but then all the questions I get is so specific. I want to do international commercial arbitration in maritime law. A second year student. I mean, other than the spelling of maritime law, what do you know? For that matter, it's like, why are you narrowing yourself down to that? And you may find out that you probably hate maritime law. It's possible, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I completely echo this. Now, 2 life lessons that you have learned in your life so far.
Be optimistic. So I'm a great optimist, I would say, and always be ready and open to change. Those are the 2 things that have helped me in my life and helped me grow in my career, whether it is professional or personal. And it's just because of that I am where I am.
Lovely. I think that's a recurring theme. I'm noticing that theme through all of your answers, whether it is optimism, be pragmatic, be open. Like that seems to be like some foundational values that I think you live by. And finally, the best piece of advice that you've ever received.
So change is constant. And in the same breath, nothing is constant.
Vedantic, totally. Yes.
So this is something which one of my boss in earlier organization always used to say, and it has resonated quite vividly for me, because in your life, whether it is personal or professional, you go through a lot of ups and downs.
Yes.
But nothing remains constant, right?
Yes.
If you are optimist, if you are looking forward, you will always ride that wave,
Yes.
and come out as a winner.
Yeah.
So just keep. So he had always been saying that just keep believing in that. So that has been my life mantra.
This is like, how Swami Chinmayananda says, this too shall pass. And you keep thinking, this too shall pass. However good, you're on the top of the world, and then you have to remind yourself, this too shall pass. Then, same on the other side.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And it's whether it is good or bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If you're living in good,
yeah,
that too shall pass, right?
Yeah, my uncle always says, all good things must come to an end. Don't worry. At the end of a holiday or something, when we are all sitting, I have to go back. So that this is what recurring thing that he would keep repeating. Relax.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. It's a very nice reminder. But it was a wonderful note on which to end this podcast. I had a very, very nice time speaking to you. I think I learned a lot, as I learn with every podcast. But there's so much wisdom and so much calm, I would say, optimism in your entire demeanor. So thank you so much for giving me your time. And I hope to see you in person soon.
Sure. And thanks to you, because you are doing a fantastic job of making these ordinary lawyers like me a celebrity on your podcast. So giving this opportunity, thank you so much, Jena.
How sweet.
Absolutely a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, likewise. And I will see you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.